All right, today we have Dr. Caralei with us. We are doing a few interviews now. We are trying to get just some really practical tips that we can all work on to be making better lifestyle choices. Dr. Caralei is actually our family naturopath and has been for a bunch of years through some different health things and challenges and some children being born and some other exciting things. So I've invited her to be on here with you. I'm sure all of you have heard about a naturopath. But she's actually going to share just for a minute. I think it would be good just to talk a little bit about your expertise and what specifically you are assessing people for and helping them with, and then maybe we can get into a few more of those specifics like we talked about. So
sure. All right, thanks, Neil. So just in case people aren't sure what naturopathic medicine is, so yes, we are primary care naturopathic doctors who treat the whole person. We use a lot of different modalities or tools when we treat our patients. So a lot of it comes down to nutrition and proper food choices. If people need specific nutrients, then we will use supplements such as, vitamin D and vitamin C. We use herbal medicine, things like echinacea and peppermint and chamomile and ginger, as well as traditional Chinese medicine that includes acupuncture and Chinese herbs such as astragalus and withania and codonopsis. I also do Bowen therapy, which is a little bit different. It's kind of like acupressure. So I'm using my thumbs or my fingers and pressing on certain spots. And when I was learning that, I realized that those are actually acupuncture points. So I'm pretty versatile if people aren't comfortable with needles to do Bowen. And hydrotherapy. Hydrotherapy is a great way to heal the body without ingesting any supplements. So it could be something like an onion over your ear for an ear infection, or a steam inhalation for a sinus infection, that sort of thing. So so we use lots of different we have lots of different tools to treat the body, and we treat patients for all sorts of different conditions.
You mentioned acupuncture too. I know you do. Do all naturopaths use some form of acupuncture, acupressure, or?
In Ontario, so there's two colleges in Canada. There's the Canadian College of Naturopathic Medicine here in Ontario, and then there's Boucher out west. And in Ontario, we learn traditional Chinese medicine, but out west, they don't necessarily have that as part of the curriculum. They have to go on and do it as a specialty afterwards. So, and a lot of the colleges, there's 5 colleges in the US, and their curriculums differ as well. So it's not as uniform across the board as you'd think, but I enjoy doing the acupuncture. It's good for fertility. I've used it for stress reduction, all sorts of things. So, yeah.
Good. Practical things. What, I know you're not able to speak to someone specifically about a particular health concern, but in general, what are easy things that the average person could be doing at home to just to be making a few better lifestyle choices? Maybe on the vitamin supplement end, that would be a good place to start.
Yeah, well, and actually, so think about like, how does naturopathic medicine work? If you want to get down to like the actual basics, I should actually back up and say that my background was I went to the University of Guelph and studied biomedical science, and I did a master's in physiology at Western. So I actually consider myself a physiologist who uses naturopathic medicine. Mm-hmm. And the premise behind naturopathic medicine is the fact that we are treating and healing the body from the inside, and it helps to heal the outside, specifically the digestion. If your digestion is happy and healthy, the idea is then your other organs and your tissues will be happy and healthy as well. For example, somebody who has eczema, it does come down to a lot of what they're eating, not so much, the dry skin or winter months. It seems to flare up worse then, but it has a lot more to do with what they're eating than most people think.
And that philosophy is exactly in line with what ours is as a chiropractor, is that your body already knows how to heal, it knows how to rebuild, it knows how to repair from the inside out, versus the pathogenesis model, which basically is wherever the sickness is, there must be something wrong in that particular area.
Right.
Which is typically mainstream medical care, looking at that from that end. And I'm glad we have that type of care. Like it is life-saving in some cases.
Absolutely.
But it doesn't, I think you and I would agree, it doesn't create a higher level of healing or function or health, but it can get you out of a crisis.
And in the modern day rationale for naturopathic medicine, or the scientific rationale for naturopathic medicine is epigenetics. Like we have our genes, we're born with a certain blueprint, right, of your genes, but how you express them will determine whether you turn that gene on, that illness on or off. And you can think of it as a volume dial on your stereo. So if it's turned down, then you're not going to express that disease gene. And if you are giving, so dairy, for example, for eczema, right? A lot of kids, a lot of adults too, if you eat too much dairy, if you have that gene for eczema, if you eat a lot of dairy, you're going to crank the volume of that eczema gene all the way up, and it will be expressed on your body. If you take dairy out, then you're going to turn the volume down. You don't get rid of the gene, of course, but you've changed the epigenetics, epi being above the genes, right? So you can apply that to so many things. If our environment, which is biochemistry at this point, like it's the certain, not just like the dairy, sort of dairy as a pathogen, it's dairy as a protein that your immune system has decided it doesn't like for whatever reason, and it's reacting to, and then that creates inflammation, and there's a whole cascade. But you could flip it and say, if you're giving your body all the right micronutrients, macronutrients are your fats and your proteins and your carbohydrates. The micronutrients are where the real things happen. That's your vitamins and your minerals and your bioflavonoids, such as like quercetin and things like that. They will turn certain genes on or off depending on what we want to do.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I'm sure you know Bruce Lipton.
And yes,
and he's talking a lot about I don't know if people are familiar with him, but a lot about our thought process and quantum physics and how those connections actually, which is probably a big can of worms for right now, but but how those epigenetically, how that affects the gene expression. It's like the analogy I always use, which is what you're alluding to, but it's a recipe book. You've got all these recipes, and you can either turn to that page and make that recipe or not turn to that page, but the lifestyle choices that you make determine if you even go to that page. It's still a recipe in the book, but whether you go to that page or not, if you make 50 of that recipe or none of them, based on the lifestyle choices that you're making. What would you say in general terms, and I'm sure this is not a specific recommendation for people, but in general terms, what are people doing well with, not well with in their diets?
I think a lot of people are understanding the importance of healthy fats nowadays, which is good. I'm still bumping up people's fruits and vegetables though, because it's good, healthy micronutrients. That's where your vitamins and your minerals come. Now, yes, it has to do with rich, healthy soil. Then you'll have all those vitamins and minerals the minerals in the crop of the broccoli or the carrots or whatever it is that you've decided to eat, but a variety of colorful fruits and vegetables, and at least 2 fruits a day. I believe the study was out of McMaster, but for a healthy cardiovascular system, we actually need 2 fruits a day, because you need that proper healthy connective tissue, the vitamin C and things like that, to help with the cardiovascular system, like your blood vessels and your heart. So I like people to have about 5 cups of fruits and veg combined a day. So often they track their diet for me, and I say, oh yes, there's your avocado, and there's your coconut oil, and there's your healthy this and your healthy that. And they've got, they know not to have like too much, deep fried and don't want the breaded meats and things like that. People got that figured out.
Yep.
But the fruits and vegetables tend to be lacking, and maybe it's because people don't like them, but they still are important. So whatever you have to do, trick yourself, right? If you need to put it in a smoothie, or put in a pasta sauce, or maybe you only like them raw, fine, then have lots of salads, right? We can get into the nitty gritty after that, like tweak people, but as a basic level, like we need to eat more of our fruits and veg.
Our kids just did a smoothie video. I don't know if you didn't see it, but we put it on our Facebook and YouTube, but they put zucchini, and Karen often does, not often, sometimes she does put zucchini or kale or something else in the smoothie. Pretty neutral flavor, but it's just an easy way, especially for kids, and we could trick ourselves probably too, because we know it's there, but it's not a strong flavor, but just to get more of that stuff in.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
sweet potato waffles too. We did a video on that too. Same one there too. Instead of like, you know, a wheat burger as a waffle,
Yeah.
the sweet
Yeah.
potato with oatmeal or oats
Yep.
as a waffle. So
Yep.
so what do you said fats are people do well with in
I
general terms too? What like what particular fats would you say are better than others?
are healthy. Yeah. So everybody's on their keto and paleo kicks, right? Most people are doing a lot of that or experimenting with that.
Can you
And the
talk on
nice,
that for just a moment of the keto, paleo?
what's that?
Can you just talk specifically on
Sure.
those for a sec, just to kind
Yeah.
of distinguish those?
So the paleo was popularized probably about 5 years ago, maybe more like 8 years ago, and it is focusing on the more of a Paleolithic diet, the way that our bodies were kind of like engineered to process foods and nutrients. So eating more protein and fruits like berries and less, not any of the carbohydrates, like not the wheat, because we wouldn't have been able to pick wheat at the Paleolithic era and like grind it up. It just wouldn't have been energetically feasible, right? So it was before the industrialized era. So like you would like be able to get your meat and your fruit and some vegetables, and that's basically it. And the fat kind of gets in with the meat, right? Like you're gonna not trim off the fat so much on your steak or your bison or whatever. The ketogenic was used medically. It's used to combat or calm seizures, and usually in children before they can manage the medication. So that's how the ketogenic diet was started. And it is very hard to stick to, but it is very effective at curbing the frequency of epileptic seizures. It is also boosts the metabolism, so it helps people lose fat very quickly. Ketogenic, though, you'll hear people talk about being on keto and then they're off and then they're on keto again, because it will ramp up your metabolism, but it is a lot of work. And so most people don't stay on it for months and months and months. They might be on it for 3 months and then off it for a month and then back on it again. And with the ketogenic, it is a lot of the healthy fats. So that was your original question. So avocados are considered a monosaturated fat. Olive oil would be a polyunsaturated fat, and the fat on your steak would be a saturated fat. So we want a mixture of saturates and unsaturates, but then not just olive oil versus beef fat or chicken fat. The avocados and nut oils also have a place in there. So we normally think about getting the fats in a variety of sources, because the fats are important for all your skin, like your cell membrane. So in your skin, they're helpful for your hormone production. And when we have lots of fats, it actually counterintuitively, we think, oh, it's going to raise our cholesterol. But funny enough, your liver learns to reprogram itself and metabolizing these fats, and then your cholesterol levels actually start to come down. It's really intriguing. So yeah, and like my background is very like the biomedical science. When I was at Guelph, like that's the pre-med program. So my nutritional brain is programmed to think, what? All this fat is really hard on the body. But I see the lab results from my patients. I go, oh wow, okay. So yeah.
What about the we see things branded omega-3, 6, 9,
yes.
the labeling of that?
Yes.
What that means?
So omega-3s are the fish oils and like flax oil, and some like chia will have both omega-3 and omega-6, but your omega-3 is tends to be, and I'm generalizing, but yeah, it's your anti-inflammatory oil. We have what we call the inflammatory cascade, again, biochemistry. But if you put in omega-3s, it tends to be anti-inflammatory, so we don't get the inflammation, and that eczema, for example, wouldn't be all inflamed and red and itchy. And then there's the omega-6s and the omega-9s, like you're thinking like an omega-3, 6, 9. The 6s are they are from the animal products. These are the and I am generalizing, but it's from like the chicken and the beef and the pork. These ones are pro-inflammatory. They're also in things like evening primrose oil, and like I said, the chia seed has both. But the omega-3s and omega-6s are considered essential fatty acids. We don't make them, so we have to physically ingest them into our body to make a proper immune system, to make healthy tissues, and your skin being, like, people say, oh, I have dry skin all the time, and I'm like, well, you're probably not getting enough of your healthy fats in the body, because we treat the body from the inside out. You can put all the cream you want on your skin, but it's not going to actually permeate through. You want to work on it from the inside out.
You said that essential fatty acid, that's typically labeled EFA.
EFAs, yeah.
Labels.
Yeah, that's our acronym for the essential fatty acids. We say EFAs. So if somebody is like, they're just eating regularly, they're not on keto, they're not on paleo, and so they're just a regular omnivore, right? Yeah. Most of the time I will ask them to increase their omega-3, because we do want a balance of a 1-to-1 ratio. We want to have equal amounts, like, you're generalizing. There are omega-3 blood tests, but they tend to be expensive. So I just look at the diet for a couple of weeks. Like, people record their diet for me and I can look at it, and we can see that, okay, you're eating a lot more omega-6 foods than omega-3 foods, because you might have that little bit of fish here and there. So then and also combined with the fact that they might have some inflammation in their body. Maybe they have an arthritic joint, or their skin is acting up, or whatever. Like, most of us have some sort of inflammation. So it's a pretty safe bet to take an omega-3 to balance out the intake of the omega-6. If somebody is vegan, then they don't get either one readily, right? So then they would take a combination omega-3, 6, 9. So, and that one is...
What about foods fortified or enriched with, like, I've seen eggs that way that have...
Yes, that goes back to my Guelph roots. Dr. Holub, he realized that if you feed chickens flaxseed, then the flaxseed omega-3 gets into the egg. It's neat science. Anyway, yeah, you get a little bit. It's not enough, but you get, it helps. It helps the big picture.
Do they enrich any other way, or is that the only type of way? Like,
that's it. Yeah. It's not magic. It's just changing the feed of the chickens. So, yeah, it's good. Yeah,
I'm learning along the way. Fantastic. What else? As far as like, you talked about processed meats and that kind of thing that people are realizing is not true. What are your thoughts on kind of the old-fashioned, like, potatoes, or the proportions of a big chunk of carbs and meats and then veg?
Right.
Like, where are we at? Actually, I mean, you can talk to this too, but the food guide is, one time it's here, and then we flip it completely upside down, and now it's the opposite of what it was 20 years ago. And
yeah, so I mean, I would say the food guide, how it is now, is better than it was. They've made definitely some improvements. Much to the chagrin of my patients, I say that potatoes and squash, I lump them in with their carbohydrates. I don't consider them vegetables, even though technically they are vegetables, but I bump them into the carbohydrate category. So for simplistic purposes, if you have a plate, so if you have your plate, half that plate should be your fruit and vegetables, and then the other half, so you have a quarter of it, that will be your protein, and a quarter will be your carbohydrate. So that carbohydrate would then be maybe your potato, or better yet, your sweet potato or your yam, because at least there's beta carotene in those. I quiz my kids all the time. I'm like, whoa, quick, trick question. What's better, broccoli or cauliflower? Because they're both vegetables, right? But at least a broccoli is green. So there's some more nutrients and micronutrients in there. Yeah. And the same with the sweet potato or the yam versus the regular potato. So, and squash, it's still starchy. So I would stick that in the carbohydrate portion of the plate. Yeah. So, yeah.
Okay, that's there's a whole lot in there. Are there apps that you recommend for people tracking their diet? Like, is there something specific, or is it
most people use the MyFitnessPal. But I have come across, I haven't used it personally, but the Noom, is that what it is? Noom, Noom. People are having good success with that one for losing weight as well. Because you need somebody to just keep you accountable. So the app apparently keeps you accountable.
Does that actually give you recommendations, advice too, or is it just more tracking what you're eating?
It's tracking and gives you advice and motivational tips for stopping snacking, or, if you want to lose weight.
Let's assume you're listening to the app when it tells you to do things.
True. Yes. But I was using a running app, training for my marathon, and the accountability is amazing. Like I always think this hand is going to come out of my phone and yell at me when I didn't do my kilometers. So
actually, I started using one. I was training for the Paris to Ancaster bike race, I was doing the St. George to Ancaster, so it was 45K or so.
Yeah.
Which was supposed to be just about now, but they packed that in. But the app I was using was very motivating. Just I think knowing that here's what the plan is, and just better than I'm going to go out and ride for a bit.
Better than a list on my fridge telling me what to do, right? Because you can choose not to look at it. You'd be like, I'm not going to look at that list.
there's so many. I mean, there's things in technology you could say we could probably do without that, and some of the time-consuming aspects of it. But there's some fantastic stuff too, and like things like Fitbits, even in our phones, tracking screen time and reminding you if you're sitting for a while or doing desk work to get up and move around, and just all those subtle reminders and as you said, things that hold you accountable.
Yep, exactly.
Anything else that you want to add or useful suggestions that the average person could make?
I don't think we get enough sleep, to be honest. I think people, like you just made me think about when you said like the screen time. I think we have too much screen time and not enough sleep. Right. And I do have a teenager in the house, and I understand that, there's some things it's big picture. You got to balance like their social life, especially now. You want to make sure they're still connected with their friends.
Yes.
But at the same time, sleep, we heal when we sleep. What I tell my kids though is you grow when you sleep, because my youngest one wants to be just as tall as her sister. So I just say, don't worry, but if you sleep, you will grow and you will. But really what happens is like you're cleansing your brain, like your cerebral spinal fluid, right? This, like it's like cleansing the brain, and our immune system is more active when we're sleeping, and our growth hormone is elevated when we're sleeping, and we actually use the calcium. So, your calcium and vitamin D supplementation, you could, I guess you're maybe grasping at straws, but taking that at the end of the day might be better than taking it at the beginning of your day, because it'll be timed with the utilization via the growth hormone. So
there's actually, I just did a video too, an article about, there's a study from a couple of years ago, but our brain cells shrink 60% when we're sleeping. So what that does is create a whole bunch more space between those neurons for cerebral spinal fluid to flush the plaques.
Wash it away, yeah.
Yep. And getting adequate sleep just allows for more of that time. But then also, of course, the REM sleep and the short wave, I think that's the right term, is more for our actual physiological healing. But that REM is for cognitive brain function, connecting with memories and events and making those stick in our brains long term.
Yeah, exactly. And again,
go ahead.
I was gonna say, I also feel like I did come across a study where people who are taking sleeping pills are more likely to have dementia later in life, which is a scary thought. I don't usually tell people that, but so if you're taking the sleeping pills for a long period of time, I try to wean people off of that and get them onto healthier options. So
I wonder if you're not getting the same quality of sleep.
You're not, no.
In that case,
yeah. So it's a scary thought though, because some people they need their sleeping pills to function, and I get that. So you have to balance it out. But I plant the seed, and at some point it's like you need to come off of this, and they know.
I wonder what's happening right now, because this is times unusual right now. But what are people's sleep patterns in general like? Are they better? Or my hope is that people have, because most people I think have a little bit more time. I know not everyone does, but maybe not going to work as early or commuting, maybe working at home, that there's an opportunity to get a little bit extra sleep.
But I wonder if people are getting sucked into the internet, right? Like I had now, mind you, she has I believe there's some anxiety and OCD, but she would get hooked into her YouTube late at night, and her mom, like my kids don't have cell phones, no technology in their bedrooms, right? Whereas this girl, whatever, she's probably being like your average teenager with her cell phone, and she was on until about 4 a.m, therefore sleeping in and not going to school, right? And I'm like, you're never going to finish the internet. You realize that, like it's never going to be finished.
Yeah.
So you gotta let it go. And that's an extreme. But even with my daughter, like she and her friends, they have a group chat, and she's going to bed at a normal hour. And again, no cell phone in her room, but her friends are up until 4 a.m. A few of them, there's about 7 on this chat, and 3 of them are up till 4 a.m. So when she wakes up in the morning, there's about 250 messages from her friends through the night. It's insane.
This is assuming that teenagers are real humans, right? Is that what we're?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, but I was like, so I hope that people are still keeping a relatively normal sleep schedule and not just vegging in front of their YouTube or whatever it is that they're doing.
Watching Tiger King on Netflix.
Oh, I want to take it off the top banner. I don't know how to do that.
Did you watch any of it or no?
No.
Okay, don't bother. But I know that's it. I mean, we have done that a few times of staying up, not binging on Tiger King, but just staying up a little bit later, because you don't have to be up at 5:30, because you can be up at 6:30 or 7 and just a little bit extra. I'll just go to bed a bit later, but that's just a slippery slope.
It's a slippery slope, yeah. And I think we've all been there, but yeah. So most of us need around 8 hours of sleep, right? I think we're kidding ourselves if we think we only need 5. So most of us need 7 to 9, so averaging 8 hours of sleep. So, if you go to bed at like 11, then you should be getting up at 7.
Yeah.
I saw those eyebrows raised.
We're usually, I aim for 9:30, get to bed just after 10, but I'm usually up at 5:30.
Yeah, right? So
7.5, I guess.
Yeah.
But
I get up earlier to run than I do on a Monday to Friday.
I personally, and I was even this way in school. I remember people, staying up till 2 a.m. studying or doing an all-nighter. I'm like, my brain doesn't have to be useful after 9 or maybe 10.
No, you need to. You're more like, and I'll say that to my kids and my patients who are kids. It's more important that you get sleep so you can be rested for the exam the next day than pulling an all-nighter, right? Like, so think about that, the consolidation, like Psych 101 first year. I'm sure everybody's taken it if you went to university, right? And you consolidate those memories of what you were studying. So.
Yep, I agree. All right, well, it's been fantastic to have you. Thank you, Dr. Caralei.
Yeah, you're welcome.
If people are looking to get a hold of you, what's the best way to do that?
Right now, email would be the best way, but they can also call the office as well. So
your website is
naturopathicperspectives.ca.
And you are in Hamilton. What's the best way? You're in close to Dundas, West Hamilton. What's the if that's Maine or Wilson or
it's where everything comes together. So Maine, West, and Osler come together, and most people know something in the plaza that I'm in, like there's the Crunch Fitness or there's the Credit Union or the Futon Shop or Booster Juice. As soon as I start, or I think Baskin Robbins is in here too. So as soon as I say one of those, they go, oh, I know exactly where you are.
A little bit west of McMaster.
Yeah, west of McMaster before you dip into Dundas.
General terms, awesome. Okay, awesome. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it a ton.
Yep.
If anyone needs to get a hold of you or ask questions, there's lots of stuff on your website, but and they can email through the website right now.
They can email through the website, yeah.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Dr. Caralei.
You're welcome.